I still remember the way the snow fell that night. Big, lazy flakes drifted down from the dark Texas sky, each one catching the orange glow of the streetlights before melting on the pavement. My breath came out in small clouds, and my old coat did little to keep the wind from gnawing at my bones. I had exactly $50 in my pocket, the last of my paycheck, and 2 days left until rent was due. Back then, I was nobody. Just a tired clerk in a mid-sized American company, typing reports and pushing paper across desks while my dreams gathered dust somewhere deep inside me. The paycheck barely stretched past the 15th of every month, and most nights, dinner meant instant noodles and tap water. That night, I was thinking about heading home when I saw him. He was standing on the corner, shivering. No coat, just a thin blue shirt that clung to his shoulders, damp from melting snow. His hair was a tangled mess, and his cheeks were hollow. But it wasn't his appearance that stopped me in my tracks. It was his eyes, deep green, sharp, alive. Something in those eyes pulled me back to my childhood, to warm Texas summers and the quiet strength of my father, who'd passed away years earlier. The man glanced at me and smiled, a tired, worn smile, and without thinking, I reached into my pocket. "Here," I said, handing him the 50. "Buy yourself a jacket. It's too cold out here." For a moment, he just stared at the bill, as if I'd handed him a piece of the sun. Then his lips curved into a strange, knowing smile. "You'll get all this back 100-fold," he said softly, his voice almost carried away by the wind. "You'll be very rich one day." But happiness, his gaze deepened, and I swear, in that look, I saw something ancient. "For happiness, you'll lack only love. You'll chase it across worlds, and it will be right under your nose." I laughed awkwardly and patted his shoulder. "Just stay warm, okay?" I walked away thinking I'd never see him again. But when I got home that night, there was a letter waiting for me. It was from my hometown in Texas, a place I hadn't set foot in for over a decade. My uncle had passed away. I hadn't seen him since I was a boy, but somehow, he'd remembered me. He left me everything. A few $100,000, a sprawling farm, and a house that smelled of cedar and old summers. I didn't understand it at the time. How could a man I barely knew give me a future I'd never dared dream about? But now, looking back, I know exactly what it was. Karma. I sold the farm, kept the house, and used the rest of the money to open a small shoe shop. Just one store, in a quiet corner of Dallas. And then something strange happened. People loved the shoes. They loved the designs, the comfort, the quality. Word spread faster than I could keep up. Within 5 years, my shoes were selling all over America. Within 10, all over the world. I became a millionaire. But wealth doesn't quiet the soul. And as I stood in my office overlooking the Dallas skyline, with more money than I could ever spend, I remembered what the green-eyed man had said. "You'll chase love across worlds." And he was right. For all my success, I was alone. It was a rainy Thursday night when everything changed. I was sitting in a small jazz bar downtown, the kind of place where the lights are dim and the saxophone wraps around you like a lover's whisper. I wasn't supposed to be there. A friend had dragged me out after weeks of hearing me complain about my empty penthouse and colder bed. That's when I saw her. She was sitting by the window, tracing the rim of her wine glass with slender fingers, her hair falling in soft waves over her shoulders. There was something quiet about her, something untouchable. She wasn't laughing with anyone. She wasn't scrolling through her phone. She just sat there, watching the rain. I don't know what possessed me, but I walked over. "Do you always look at storms like they're telling secrets?" I asked. She turned, and for a heartbeat, the world held still. Her name was Clara, and she was unlike anyone I'd ever met. That night changed everything. But before I tell you how Clara shattered and rebuilt my world, I need you to understand one thing. None of this, the money, the success, the love, would have happened if I hadn't given away my last $50 on that snowy night. It wasn't charity. It wasn't strategy. It was instinct. Call it karma. Call it fate. Call it whatever you want. But the universe listens when you give without expecting. And it answers in ways you can't imagine. I've met thousands of people in my life. Business partners, investors, employees, strangers on crowded streets. Most faces blur together over the years. But Clara was different. That night, in the small jazz bar, time stopped. It wasn't poetic exaggeration, I mean it. The low hum of conversation, the clinking of glasses, the lazy saxophone in the corner, all of it faded into silence. It was just her. She had this calm about her, like she'd seen storms and survived them, yet carried no bitterness in her smile. Her hazel eyes had the kind of depth you don't often see anymore, the kind that makes you want to unpack the stories behind them, one by one, until you reach the last hidden secret. I was terrified. I'd faced corporate sharks, negotiated million-dollar deals, and risked everything I had on dreams nobody believed in. But walking up to her table, hands in my pockets like a nervous teenager, was the bravest thing I'd ever done. "Do you always look at storms like they're telling secrets?" I asked. Clara looked up at me, amused. "Sometimes they do," she said softly, her voice lower than I expected, like velvet. "Depends on whether you're listening." And just like that, she invited me into her world. We spent hours talking that night. She was a photographer, it turned out. She traveled from city to city, chasing fleeting moments, sunsets, street performers, lost corners of forgotten towns. She said she believed in capturing what people didn't notice, the in-between moments, as she called them. "You sound like someone who doesn't like staying in one place," I said. "I used to," she admitted, "until staying became unbearable." Something flickered across her face, a shadow of a memory she wasn't ready to share. I didn't push. Somehow, I knew I'd learn her secrets in time, if I was patient enough. When the bar finally closed, we stepped outside into the rain. The streets glistened under the streetlights, and everything smelled of wet asphalt and electricity. Clara tilted her face up to the sky and smiled. "It's funny," she whispered, almost to herself. "I wasn't supposed to be here tonight." "Neither was I," I replied. She looked at me then, really looked, the kind of gaze that makes your chest tighten, because you suddenly know that your life will never be the same again. The days turned into weeks, and somehow, Clara and I became inseparable. We walked the city together, found hidden diners only locals knew, talked about books, music, regrets, and dreams. With her, the world slowed down. My board meetings, deadlines, profit margins, all of it felt small compared to the way she laughed when I burned pancakes at 2 in the morning. One night, as we sat on the rooftop of my penthouse watching the Dallas skyline glitter beneath us, Clara turned to me and said, "Do you believe in fate, John?" "I didn't," I admitted. "Not until you." She smiled at that, but didn't answer. Instead, she leaned her head on my shoulder and whispered, almost absent-mindedly, "It's strange, though, sometimes I feel like you were meant to find me." I kissed her hair and said nothing. But inside, something stirred, a memory I couldn't quite place. Then came the dream. It happened 3 months into our relationship. I woke up in the middle of the night, my heart pounding, drenched in sweat. I dreamt of the snowy street again, the night I gave $50 to the homeless man with the green eyes. Only this time, Clara was there. She stood behind him, her hazel eyes soft and luminous, her hand resting gently on his shoulder. And when I looked into his deep green gaze, he said, "You'll catch it in the worlds, and it will be right under your nose." I woke up shaking. The next morning, Clara found me sitting at the kitchen table, staring at my coffee like it might reveal the secrets of the universe. "You okay?" she asked, setting her camera bag down. I hesitated, then told her about the dream, about the man, about what he'd said. Clara listened quietly, her expression unreadable. Then she reached across the table, took my hand, and said, "Maybe he was right." And for the first time in my life, I started to believe in something bigger than myself. But life has a cruel sense of timing. The very moment I started to feel like I had everything, wealth, success, purpose, love, the universe reminded me how fragile happiness can be. One crisp autumn evening, Clara didn't answer my calls. Hours passed. Then, just before midnight, my phone rang. An unfamiliar voice. A hospital. An accident. By the time I reached her, she was unconscious, tubes and machines keeping her alive. The doctors said she might not wake up. I sat by her bed for 2 days straight, holding her hand, whispering promises I wasn't sure anyone could hear. On the third night, as I drifted into an exhausted half-sleep, I felt it again, that strange connection, like the universe breathing against my skin. And in my dream, the green-eyed man appeared once more. "She's part of your karma too," he said gently. "But you'll have to fight for her. Nothing worth keeping comes without a price." I woke up with tears in my eyes and fire in my chest. I wasn't going to lose her. Hospitals have their own kind of silence. It's not peaceful. It's heavy, filled with unspoken prayers, ticking clocks, and the quiet rustle of footsteps that always seem too soft. I sat beside Clara's bed, holding her cold hand in mine, my forehead pressed against her knuckles as if I could breathe life back into her. Machines beeped steadily, mocking me with their indifference. The doctors said the accident had caused severe head trauma. They didn't promise anything. They didn't have to. I saw it in their eyes. But giving up has never been in my nature. On the second night, when exhaustion finally dragged me under, I dreamed again. I was standing in a vast, empty field under a starless sky. The air was cold, and the silence stretched endlessly, pressing against my skin like a second layer. And then I saw him, the green-eyed man. He stood a few feet away, wearing the same thin blue shirt I'd seen him in all those years ago, though now it wasn't damp with snow. It was perfectly dry, untouched, as if time hadn't dared touch him. "She's not gone," he said softly. "But she's between worlds." Between worlds. My voice cracked, raw from sleepless nights. "What does that even mean?" "She's close enough to hear you," he continued, "but far enough that she can't find her way back on her own." I stepped closer, desperate. "Then help me bring her back." For the first time, his gaze faltered. There was sadness there, deep, unspoken, endless. "This isn't my choice," he whispered. "It never was. But there's something you should know, John. Clara's fate and yours have always been tied together. Long before you met." Before I could ask what he meant, I woke up gasping, my heart pounding as if I'd sprinted miles. I didn't believe in mysticism. I didn't believe in fate, or signs, or any of the things people cling to when the world stops making sense. But sitting there, staring at Clara's fragile body hooked to machines, I felt it, deep in my bones, that what the man said was true. So I talked to her. Every day, every hour, I told her stories, about the night we met, about the rooftop mornings, about how she made burnt pancakes taste like heaven. I whispered promises of the places we'd still go, the sunsets we hadn't seen, the photos she'd still take. And slowly, impossibly, something shifted. The doctors said her brain activity increased. Subtle at first, then stronger. As if she was finding her way back. 2 weeks later, Clara woke up. Her voice was weak, her body frail, but when her hazel eyes opened and met mine, I swear I felt the entire universe exhale. "I thought I lost you," I whispered, pressing my forehead against hers. "You almost did," she murmured, her breath warm against my lips. "But someone wouldn't let me go." "Someone?" I frowned. Clara hesitated, her gaze distant, almost haunted. "In the in-between place," she said slowly, struggling for the words. "There was a man. Green eyes. He told me to come back to you." My blood ran cold. She had never seen him. I had never described him. But she knew. Clara's recovery was slow, but she was stubborn, more stubborn than me, if that's possible. I hired the best specialists, the best therapists, spared no expense. My money had bought me comfort and security, but this was the first time it was buying me time. And every time I thought about giving up, I remembered what the green-eyed man had said in my dream. "She's part of your karma too." The words followed me everywhere. A month later, Clara and I returned to the jazz bar where we first met. The same soft lights, the same quiet saxophone, the same rain-soaked windows. But the moment felt different now. Heavier, fragile, precious. "You know," she said, tracing the rim of her glass just like she had that first night. "I never told you why I was here the day we met." I raised an eyebrow. "You said you weren't supposed to be." "I wasn't." She smiled faintly, then looked me dead in the eye. "I was on my way to the bus station. I was leaving Dallas that night for good. I had no reason to stay. No plan. Nothing. And yet, you stayed." Clara reached across the table, lacing her fingers with mine. "Because I saw you. For the first time in years, I felt complete. We started planning our future, not in the abstract, but for real. Trips, projects, dreams. I wanted to give her everything. But life doesn't give without taking. 3 months later, I was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. At first, it was subtle, a slight tremor in my left hand, a stiffness in my movements. But the tests confirmed what I already feared. It was only going to get worse. I tried to hide it from Clara, but she noticed. She always noticed. "You don't have to protect me from this," she said one night, sitting cross-legged on the bed, her fingers tracing mine. "Whatever happens, We face it together. I wanted to believe her. But deep down, a part of me was terrified. Not of dying, not of losing my fortune, but of losing her, of karma demanding its price. And in the quiet hours of the night, when sleep refused to come, I kept thinking about the green-eyed man. Who was he? Why had he appeared to both of us? And why did I have this sinking feeling that I hadn't seen him for the last time? There are moments in life when everything you believe about the world starts to crack, when reality feels too thin, like something fragile stretched over a deeper, stranger truth. For me, that moment came on a quiet Sunday morning. Clara and I were having breakfast in the garden, sunlight spilling through the branches of the old magnolia tree behind our house. She was laughing at something ridiculous I'd said, her hazel eyes catching little flecks of gold in the light. It should have been perfect, but something felt wrong. A pressure in the air, a weight I couldn't name. Then I saw him, across the street, leaning against a lamppost like he'd been waiting for me his whole life, stood the green-eyed man. Same thin blue shirt, same tangled hair, same eyes, ancient, unblinking, knowing. I stood so abruptly I knocked over my coffee. "Clara," I whispered, my voice shaking. "Do you see him?" She turned, following my gaze. Her brow furrowed. "There's no one there, John." But I wasn't hallucinating. I knew I wasn't. Because the moment our eyes locked, he nodded once, slow, deliberate, and started walking away. I followed. He led me 3 blocks down, then stopped in front of an abandoned church. The stained glass windows were cracked, and the door hung slightly off its hinges. Inside, the air smelled of damp wood and forgotten prayers. "You're not supposed to be real," I said, my voice louder than I intended. "I gave you $50 years ago, and somehow my entire life changed. My business, Clara, everything. And now you're here again. Why?" He turned slowly, and for the first time, he smiled. Not the tired smile I remembered, but something sharper, almost sorrowful. "Because it's time you knew the truth." My chest tightened. About what? About why everything happened the way it did. He told me his name. "Sam," he said simply. "Once, a long time ago, I was like you. Ambitious, hungry, desperate to matter." I frowned. "What are you talking about?" Sam's green eyes glimmered in the fractured light streaming through the windows. "I made choices," he said. "Some good. Most selfish. I hurt people, John. I destroyed things I didn't understand. And when everything I loved slipped through my fingers, I wandered. I lost myself. Until one night, a stranger gave me $50 and told me to buy a jacket." I froze. "That's exactly what you did for me," he finished softly. "Because once, someone did it for me." The words lodged in my throat. "You mean this has all happened before?" Sam stepped closer, his voice low, almost reverent. "Karma doesn't forget, John. It circles back, not as punishment, not as reward, but as balance. You gave without expecting. That's why life gave back." But, he hesitated, his jaw tightening. "Karma isn't done with you yet." Before I could respond, I heard footsteps behind me. "Clara." Her voice trembled as she whispered, "John, who are you talking to?" I turned, pointing towards Sam. "Him. The man I told you about." But when I looked back, he was gone. Clara searched my face, worry clouding her features. "You're pale. You're shaking. Maybe you should rest." I wanted to believe she was right. That maybe I was overtired, my illness playing tricks on me. But deep down, I knew better. Because when we got home, I found something on the porch. An old, battered photograph. It showed a younger Sam, maybe in his 30s, standing in front of a small Texas farmhouse. Behind him was a boy, maybe 8 or 9 years old. The boy was me. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in my study, staring at the photo until my vision blurred. I had no memory of meeting Sam as a child. None. But the farmhouse in the picture? That was my uncle's property, the one I'd inherited after he died. Why was Sam there? Why had I forgotten? And why did I feel like the universe had been nudging me toward this moment my entire life? 3 days later, I found Sam again, or maybe he found me. I was walking through the park at dusk, lost in thought, when I saw him sitting on a weathered bench beneath a sprawling oak tree. He looked older now, worn and fragile, but those green eyes still carried entire lifetimes. "You left me that photo," I said, sitting beside him. Sam nodded. "You were meant to see it." "Why?" I demanded. "What are you not telling me?" He sighed, running a hand through his graying hair. "Because, John, Clara isn't the first. I stared at him, my breath catching. The first what? The first woman you've loved. His gaze pinned me in place. And she won't be the last, unless you make a different choice this time. My pulse thundered in my ears. What does that even mean? Sam looked away, his voice breaking slightly. Once, I had a Clara too, he whispered. And I lost her. I let pride and fear destroy everything. And I've been walking between worlds ever since, trying to put right what I broke. My throat tightened. You're saying this is some kind of second chance? Sam's green eyes met mine, and for the first time, I saw something I'd never expected to find there. Hope. But before I could ask anything more, Sam stood abruptly, glancing over my shoulder. She's here, he murmured. I turned, but there was no one. When I looked back, Sam was gone. That night, Clara found me sitting on the edge of our bed, the photograph still clutched in my hand. You've been quiet lately, she said softly, touching my cheek. I wanted to tell her everything, about Sam, about the photo, about the impossible threads tying our lives together. But then she whispered something that froze me where I sat. John, I think I've seen him too. In my dreams. Clara didn't sleep that night. Neither did I. We sat on the couch, the rain tapping against the windows, her knees pulled to her chest as she hugged a blanket around herself. The soft lamp light painted her face in gold, but her eyes, her hazel eyes were distant, haunted. I keep dreaming about him, she whispered finally. The green-eyed man. I froze. Sam. She nodded slowly. I see him standing by a river. Always the same place. The same sound of water rushing beneath a wooden bridge. Sometimes you're there too. I leaned forward, my voice tight. What happens in the dream? Clara hesitated, twisting the blanket in her hands. I'm running toward you, but you never reach me. Every time I get close, the bridge collapses, and you fall. Sam tries to hold you, but he can't. And right before you disappear, he looks at me and says, not again. A chill swept through me. Not again. Over the next week, the dreams grew stronger. Clara would wake in the middle of the night gasping, tears streaking her cheeks, sometimes calling my name. I started digging. Old archives, property records, dusty boxes from my uncle's farmhouse in Texas. Something told me the answers were buried in the past. And then, one late night in my study, I found it. An old leather-bound journal, tucked into a wooden chest my uncle had kept locked. Inside were faded photographs, brittle letters, and entries written in a careful, looping script. The first page was dated December 1892. Her name is Clara Beaumont. She's the most beautiful woman I've ever seen. And she loves me. God help me, she loves me back. My breath caught. I flipped the page. Sam Wilkins is my closest friend, my brother in all but blood. He helped me buy this land, build this house. I trust him with my life. But I've seen the way he looks at her. I kept reading, heart pounding faster with every line. The entries painted a picture I could hardly comprehend. A different life, more than a century ago, with names that were too familiar to dismiss. John, Clara, Sam. It was us. The final entry was stained with something dark, the ink blurred at the edges. I don't know who to blame anymore, him or myself. Clara begged me to forgive him. I couldn't. That night, I followed him to the bridge by the river. We fought. I slipped. He tried to save me. God, he tried, but the river took me anyway. And at the bottom of the page, scrawled hastily, not again. When I looked up from the journal, Clara stood in the doorway, her face pale as moonlight. I've seen that bridge, she whispered, trembling. It's the one in my dreams. We sat there until dawn, holding each other in silence, the weight of 100 years pressing between us. I found Sam again the next evening. He was sitting under the old oak in the park, the last light of sunset tangled in his graying hair. This time, he didn't look surprised to see me. You found the journal, he said quietly. I nodded, my throat dry. What are we? Sam didn't answer immediately. He stared out across the park, as if searching for the right words. We're threads, he said finally. Karma weaves us through time, over and over, until we learn what we couldn't before. My hands clenched into fists. Learn what? That love isn't possession, he said softly. That forgiveness is the only way to break the cycle. I wanted to be angry, but I couldn't. Because when I looked at him, really looked, I saw the truth written in his green eyes, the same pain I'd read in those faded journal pages. He carried a lifetime of regret. But karma isn't kind. It isn't cruel either. It simply balances. And balance, it seemed, wasn't finished with us. 2 weeks later, Clara collapsed during a gallery showing of her photographs. The doctors said her injuries from the accident months earlier had caused complications. Internal bleeding they hadn't detected before. She needs surgery immediately, the surgeon said grimly. But it's risky. I stood there in the cold fluorescent hallway, the weight of the universe pressing on my shoulders. That's when Sam appeared. Only this time, Clara saw him too. She gasped, clutching my hand. It's him, she whispered. John, he's real. Sam stepped closer, his expression somber. This is the moment, John. The one that decides everything. What are you talking about? I demanded. You can ask for her life, he said softly. But karma always demands a price. My voice shook. What price? Sam's green eyes glimmered with something like sorrow. Yours. I looked at Clara, lying pale and unconscious on the hospital bed, her breathing shallow, machines beeping steadily beside her. I thought about the jazz bar, the rooftop mornings, the soft weight of her head on my shoulder, and I knew, with terrifying certainty, that there was no universe where I could let her go. I'll do it, I whispered. Take whatever you need from me. Just save her. Sam's gaze softened. He stepped forward, placing a hand on my shoulder, and for the first time, I felt warmth radiate from his touch, ancient, infinite, and unearthly. The lights above us flickered, and then everything went black. Darkness. For a moment, I thought I was dead. But then I opened my eyes and saw light. Not sunlight. Not the fluorescent glare of a hospital. Something softer, deeper, a pale, endless glow that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. The air was warm, filled with the quiet hum of something alive, something ancient. I was standing on a bridge. The bridge from Clara's dreams. Wooden planks stretched beneath my feet, worn smooth by countless steps, arching over a vast river that shimmered like liquid glass. The water carried reflections of places I recognized and places I didn't, fragments of my life, my past, and something far older than either. And at the far end of the bridge, waiting, stood Sam. You kept your word, he said softly, his green eyes glowing faintly in the strange light. Where's Clara? My voice cracked, desperate. He stepped aside, and there she was. Clara stood barefoot at the center of the bridge, wrapped in soft white light, her hazel eyes wide with wonder and fear. When she saw me, she ran into my arms, and I held her so tightly I thought the universe itself might shatter. You're okay, I whispered into her hair. You're safe now. But then Sam's voice cut through the stillness. She's here because of you, John. But she can't stay. I pulled back, holding Clara's shoulders, confusion knotting in my chest. What do you mean, she can't stay? Sam's expression was solemn, ancient, tired. The surgery worked, he said gently. Clara's body is alive. Her heart beats. But right now, she's standing on the threshold, between your world and mine. And you're the reason she hasn't crossed fully. Clara turned to Sam, trembling. Why are you doing this? Why us? Because, Sam said, his gaze steady. This is your last chance to end the cycle. I stared at him, my fists clenched. What cycle? Sam stepped closer, his voice low, heavy with meaning. You, me, and Clara, we've walked this path before. Lifetime after lifetime. Karma has brought us together, trying to teach us what we failed to learn. In 1892, you fell from this very bridge because I couldn't let go of my pride. Clara lost us both. And when I died, I couldn't move on. My soul has been trapped here, walking between worlds, carrying my regret. His voice cracked, just slightly. I swore, if the universe ever gave me another chance, I'd make it right. I glanced at Clara. Her tears glimmered in the strange light, catching tiny reflections of our entire story. You mean, I whispered, all of this, the jacket, the inheritance, meeting Clara again, it was karma trying to finish what we started? Sam nodded. Karma doesn't punish. It doesn't reward. It brings us back to the same crossroads until we choose differently. And what's the choice? I asked, though I already knew. Sam's eyes softened. You can go back, John. Live the life you've built. Stay with Clara. But if you do, I'll remain trapped here, walking between worlds, watching you both live the life I once destroyed. Clara stepped forward, shaking her head. John, no. You can't. Or, Sam continued, you can let go. Give me your place, your life, your body. I'll take your illness, your burdens, everything. You'll move on. And for the first time in 100 years, I'll be free. The river roared beneath us, a current of memories whispering fragments of old promises, old heartbreaks, old endings. I looked at Clara, my entire being screaming to stay, to live, to hold her until the world ended. But then I looked at Sam, at the weight of his regret, at the quiet hope in his green eyes. And I remembered what he once told me. Karma always gives back what you give away. Clara grabbed my hands, shaking her head violently. Don't you dare leave me, John. We finally found each other. After everything, after lifetimes, we're here. Please don't go. I cupped her face, memorizing every curve, every freckle, every breath. I found you once, I whispered. I'll find you again. No, she sobbed, pressing her forehead against mine. I can't lose you. You won't, I promised. Not forever. I kissed her, tasting salt and rain and every life we'd lived before this one. And when I pulled away, I looked at Sam and nodded. Take it. There was no light, no pain, no sound, just warmth. I woke up under a magnolia tree. The air was soft and golden, filled with the hum of cicadas. Somewhere far away, I heard laughter, familiar, distant, impossible. I stood, looking down at my hands, expecting them to tremble the way they always had since Parkinson's took hold. But they were steady, strong, whole. I turned, and there was Sam. Only, he wasn't Sam anymore. His shirt was gone, replaced by something simple and white, his tangled hair smooth, his face peaceful in a way I'd never seen before. Thank you, he said softly. You broke the cycle. I smiled faintly. Take care of her. He nodded once, his green eyes shining like sunlight through leaves. I will. But this time, John live free. Back in the hospital, Clara woke gasping, calling my name. Sam, alive now, whole, breathing, held her hand and whispered that everything would be all right. And somewhere beyond the veil of time, I walked on. Not away from her, but toward her. Because love isn't confined to one lifetime. It waits. It follows. It always finds its way back. Months later, Clara opened a small package delivered to the doorstep. Inside was an old photograph, the same one of the Texas farmhouse. Only this time, something had changed. 3 figures stood together, Sam, Clara, and me. And in the corner, written in faded ink, were 6 simple words. Karma always brings us home.